Chapter 22, Timeline Outlaws. If you choose to move ahead, to rise in vibration, consciousness, and clarity, the help will be there for you. It always has been. You don't need to have it all figured out in advance. You just need to make the choice. Once you do, the way begins to form. The path reveals itself. People show up, sometimes spiritually, sometimes physically, but the support arrives like clockwork. Still, the age-old question persists. Do we need darkness in order to recognize the light? Is contrast necessary for evolution? Do we only appreciate goodness because we've seen its absence? The answer lives inside polarity, not as a punishment, but as a mechanism of growth. Choosing is an active state. It moves energy. Remaining in a fog of unknowing, refusing to choose, is passive. Passivity is the signature frequency of the 3D world. The old paradigm was built on inertia, indecision, and obedience. Yet, choosing awareness, choosing compassion, choosing truth, these are radical acts. They mark the pivot point between bondage and liberation. That leads to the harder questions. What happens to those around you when you begin to rise? When you ascend into an aligned higher frequency free from external controls, will you lose connection to those you love? If the earth truly splits into two timelines, two frequencies, or two realities, what really happens to the ones who don't choose to come along? Loving through the firewall. Jane says, I haven't checked out of the system because I have a daughter living in France and I want to get on a plane and go see her, and there's no way I can travel from Australia to France out of the system. I respond, right. And when we talk about multidimensional awareness, we often forget that we still have to operate in 3D at times. You leave a toe in the system, not because you believe in it, but because you love someone enough to walk through it. Jane says, the way I've reconciled it is that I'm staying within the system so I can do the things that I wish to be doing that are important to me. So I say, let's define the system. What is it really? Jane says, that's any of their regulation, rules, illegal laws, legislation, anything that they tell me that I have to do. Anything that they, being the fat controllers, I mean. I say, yet you were the one in the airport educating everyone about masks and social distancing as they hauled you off to the clink. Jane laughs. I was going to meet my daughter. I say, you took the high road, refusing to comply, but doing it with grace, with explanation, and with clarity. Jane says, I pick and choose my battles. I respond, exactly. That's the new mastery. We're not here to get arrested for no reason or be forced into silence. We want to keep going, keep creating, keep helping others rise. Sometimes that means staying just inside the system's lines, but without letting it define you. That's how I see it, having one toe in 3D, not because we're asleep, but because we're loving. Our families are still inside, our children, our friends, so we honor their free will. We participate just enough to remain connected, but we remain emotionally, energetically, and spiritually detached. You can board a plane, deal with TSA, and go through their ridiculous rituals, not because you agree with them, but because your child is on the other side of the world. That's a conscious choice. That's sovereignty. While the TSA agent is patting you down for refusing the X-ray, you can smile and joke and say, hey, I'm grateful for any touch at all. You don't have to suffer through it. You can witness it and lighten it. You can remain in your higher state even while they do their job. We're just playing roles. You the traveler, them the enforcer. On a soul level, you're one. So I go through the line. I let them scan my toiletries. I mourn the loss of my kumquat brandy from Greece poured down the drain because it didn't meet their liquid ounce requirements. The ancient told me I could drink it right there at 8 a.m. Instead, I said, enjoy it, and walked on. That's the paradox. You participate, but you're no longer participating. You comply just enough to keep loving, but you do it without attachment, without allegiance, and without illusion. Reverse-engineered reality. There's something few realize. The entire structure of our communication has been inverted. As mentioned earlier, language, once a sacred harmonic instrument, has been flipped into a mechanism of entrapment. True sacred languages, Hebrew, Aramaic, cuneiform, Sanskrit, moved from right to left. They vibrate at higher frequencies. Their glyphs, their intention, their cadence are all encoded with light. Then came English. English was engineered as a reversal language, read left to right, severed from its roots, distorted in frequency and form. It wasn't an accident. It was designed to short-circuit resonance, to disconnect us from source. It didn't stop with words. Our music, too, was hijacked. In the early 20th century, the Rockefellers led the charge to retune global music from the 432 Hz scale to 440 Hz, a subtle shift that wreaked massive energetic havoc. Baroque music, ancient harmonics, and healing frequencies were all based in 432. The power brokers wanted discord, not harmony. They brought in Joseph Goebbels, yes, that one, Hitler's propaganda minister, to sell the idea. Goebbels famously stated, "If you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it." He helped enforce the frequency shift under the guise of modernization. Thus, almost all music today, your favorite pop songs, your background soundtracks, even classical compositions, have been retuned to a scale designed to lower your vibration. It promotes confusion, depression, discord. It keeps you locked into 3D consciousness, even when you think you're being relaxed or entertained. It's the inverse of what music is meant to be: a portal, a medicine, a memory of celestial connection. That's the world we inherited, a reversed matrix. Once you see the inversion, you can choose to reverse it back to its source-aligned version. You can retune your frequency, reclaim your authority, rise from the hypnotic loop. You can exit the 3D world without abandoning those or the things you love. You don't need to run away. You need to wake up inside it and hold the line for others to find you. Because once you've exited the lie, you become the living frequency of truth. Quantum choice points. Let's talk about time, and more specifically, timelines. It's one of those topics that can twist your brain into knots if you try to approach it with the strictly linear mindset. Our spiritual guides often say, there is no past, no future, only the present. But what does that actually mean? To me, it doesn't mean the past didn't happen. It means that past, present, and future are all accessible from the now. That now is a kind of fulcrum. The moment you focus on the future, you're no longer rooted in the present. And yet, paradoxically, that focus begins to call the future into form. Timelines, like time itself, aren't straight lines. They're not rails we ride once and forever. They're more like braided frequencies, overlapping, shifting, interwoven. You don't travel them in a straight shot. You match their frequency. You align with them. That's why it helps to think of timelines not as tracks, but as states of being. Each timeline carries its own emotional tone, spiritual texture, and ultimate outcome. Your vibration, your dominant state of being, is the access key. My state of being is aligned with a timeline where the world does not end in destruction. We are not doomed. I do not subscribe to the idea that evil wins or that the collapse of humanity is inevitable. My timeline is the one where God wins, love wins, Mother Earth wins, humanity wins. It's not a hopeful future. It's a vibrational reality that already exists and which I've chosen to inhabit. That's the timeline I live on. We're here for a reason, not to spectate, but to help shape the outcome. We are midwifing a monumental moment in the history of this planet where good not only triumphs, but reclaims its rightful seat. It's not something that might happen, it's something that's already becoming. The shifts are real, the quickenings are undeniable, yet the invitation remains constant. Stay aligned. You can slip off into the lower state, a detour, a pocket of darkness, and suddenly feel like you've fallen back into the old world. Fear, anger, despair, They'll try to seduce you, and yet you can always reclaim your path. Say it out loud if you need to. I don't choose this. I choose the timeline where good wins. Declare it, feel it, return to it. Some people say we've slipped back into the dark timeline again. They say we've regressed or that something shifted and we're back in the mess. I don't buy it. I never left the upper track. I may pass through turbulence, but my compass doesn't waver. I am not here for doom. That said, detours are real. We're watching loved ones leave the planet in increasing numbers. Cancers, sudden deaths, suicides, accidents. These exits are not meaningless. They're part of the shift. They're not proof that evil is winning. They're evidence of souls making vibrational choices. This doesn't mean we've left the highest timeline. It means we're watching soul contracts at work. For whatever reason, these people chose to leave the planet at this appointed time. The people left behind get scared. They take the imagery literally. They see every tragedy as a sign we've been derailed. I say this with full clarity. We are still on the highest trajectory. The most glorious outcome is still in motion. Jane says, I had a very profound vision. I had dropped my husband at work and he unlocked the door to this massive warehouse that houses robotic equipment. As I watched him walk through this tiny door into the huge building, I had a vision of timelines as I thought, I wonder which one he's going into. It was like the movie Sliding Doors, where two timelines were playing out at the same time. It's just choices. Then I got that there's an infinite number of timelines for any moment. Any vibrational being has multiple timelines that are happening simultaneously, and you jump them by vibration, and literally in any moment you have a choice. Right now I'm sitting here speaking with you, Lane. Am I choosing to speak about something that is low vibration or something that is high vibration? At the same time, I'm having this very high vibrational, intellectual, emotional, spiritual conversation with Lane. There is also the same conversation going on with Lane at exactly the same point in the same space reality where we're talking about low vibrational stuff. I respond, you've just touched on something big there. Those points of connection where timeline jumps occur. That connects directly to what Tesla hinted at, the universe of numbers. There's a brilliant physicist named Nassim Haramein who expanded on Einstein's field theories and tied them back to Tesla's 3-6-9 formula. You know Tesla's quote, if you knew the magnificence of 3, 6, and 9, you would have the key to the universe. Haramein discovered that the toroidal fields, the dynamic energy systems that shape everything from galaxies to atoms, are formed and governed by 3, 6, 9. Imagine two spinning toruses, one above and one below, forming a full sphere. Where those energetic fields intersect, you find nodes, points of decision, inflection points. At those nodes, that's where we jump timelines. They're vibrational hinges, moments of choice, encoded in the math of universe. That's polarity. That's the architect of freedom. Every moment is a portal. The more conscious you are, the more clearly you see them. Let me repeat that. Every moment is a portal. The more conscious you are, the more clearly you see them. Jane says, I think that when we jump timelines, some people have the perception that they've gotten off one train and gotten on another that's, let's say, higher and better. That's their perception. But you can keep jumping trains. You can go back to the first train. You can go to this one. You can jump over to this one. It's like we are flying through the air as in dreams of weightlessness, where you can scale staircases and mountains. That's what we're doing. I have dreams where I can run on a hill and then just launch and I fly. I have dreams where I get pulled by magnets up into areas I don't want to be in. That's all we're doing. We're just jumping. When I am sitting here hoping to write a beautiful book, I am on one timeline. That is the highest, purest possibility for humanity. When I jump to a timeline where I connect with somebody I love dearly, they might think that right now Lane and I need to be put into a mental asylum. I jump onto another train and another timeline, and I'm choosing to do that because I want to experience all sorts of things. I didn't come here to just play nice. I want to get dirty. I want to, dare I say it, have my emotions in all sorts of different states. I want the contrast. I want the mud. I want the experiences. I respond, that's the rebel spirit. We didn't come here for a vanilla life. We came to touch the extremes, to feel the density so we could transcend it. You're right. We're not hopping trains to escape. We're choosing timelines that help us remember, integrate, and expand. The beauty of this multidimensional reality is that you can hold the highest vibration and still touch the human experience fully. You can choose the mud and still be pure light. You can embrace the shadow without abandoning the mission. This is the age of vibrational mastery, not detachment, but deliberate navigation. We don't numb out, we choose in, again and again. That's what timeline sovereignty means. You're not locked into a fate. You're not bound to the train you woke up on. You are a multidimensional being with keys to the whole system. You just have to remember, you're the one holding the map. Atlantis redo. I say, Jane, you deliberately uncovered that Atlantis was one of your past lives. You know you're not just here to reflect on that lifetime. You're here to recalibrate it and reclaim it, to fix what went wrong not only within yourself, but within the timeline itself. Jane responds, correct. However, it's all happening simultaneously. There you go. There's the no time, no past, no future. This time, am I jumping over to Atlantis and blowing it up? There's a version of me that did do that, or does do that. I say, that's exactly it. That's timeline jumping and time travel, and they're one and the same. That's part of why we say there is no past and no future, because time travel is already happening right now, not in theory, not in a sci-fi novel, in our lived field. This isn't about metaphors anymore. This is about actual shifts in our shared reality. We've all witnessed the Mandela effect, that eerie distortion where details from the past change before our eyes. One moment Mandela is alive in prison, the next he's long dead. One day it's Berenstain Bears, the next it's Berenstain. These aren't memory glitches, they're timeline corrections, and they're often the result of someone, or many someones, traveling interdimensionally to alter a thread in time. So, if you're in Atlantis right now, in another layer of the same moment, correcting what you once set in motion, then that revision is rippling into the now. The field is being updated. The choice you make across timelines feeds back into this one. Which begs the question, what kind of casualty are we creating through multidimensional repair? It's a mind bender, but it's also a truth we're starting to feel viscerally. The past lives aren't just stories from long ago. They're active currents running parallel to this one, feeding into it, evolving it. Healing one heals many. As we begin to collapse the illusion of time, we begin to see money the same way. Just as time is not real, money is not real. We've constructed entire systems around scarcity and limitation. But when people begin to experience true abundance, they realize that money was always just an illusion, a placeholder for permission. That's what's happening now with time. As the present moment becomes more saturated with meaning, the walls between past and future begin to dissolve, and the illusion of linearity begins to fall apart. Suddenly, we're getting it. We're grasping concepts we used to struggle to even conceptualize. We are experiencing time as fluid. Memory is elastic and reality as programmable. This is a collapse of old paradigms, not in theory, but in real time. Anyone who says nothing is happening is either still asleep or deliberately looking away because everything is happening. The veil is lifting on every level. The illusion that government works for the people? Gone. The illusion that obedience is virtue? Gone. The illusion that religion is the only path to God connection? Disintegrating. We are shedding the matrix skin layer by layer. We are the ones making this possible collectively through our vibration, our intention, and our choices. We are the ones selecting the higher timeline, refusing the false structures, and grounding the real reality. We are literally doing this with our consciousness. Thank you for listening to this excerpt.